tributary holds a special place in my heart in that we were literally standing on the banks of the creek staring at the culvert when out of the depth of the plunge pool at the base of the culvert, 2 adult coho who were trying to make their way to their spawning grounds were stuck. Both of these fish jumped up multiple times trying to get into that culvert. The Cold Water Connection campaign is working to remove the barriers on the Olympic Peninsula to bring salmon and steelhead back home. 50% of the state's non-listed populations under the Federal Endangered Species Act call the Olympic Peninsula home. It is a salmon stronghold. We are what some consider a climate refuge. If you look at climate projections into the 2080s, we're going to have some of the coldest and cleanest waters left for salmon in the Pacific Northwest. We have a lot of incredible habitat, both within the National Forest and Olympic National Park, but we really need to shore up the strongholds of the Olympic Peninsula by opening up these barriers, removing these blockages so that salmon and steelhead can get back into their home habitats.
And this culvert is acting like a barrier, just like a dam would. And fish cannot go upstream to get to colder water, to get to their summer refuge. So water temperature can be an issue too, but this is a classic example of what we're trying to fix. And the first thing we're doing with this project is identifying these barriers that are not yet documented. So we're walking all the county roads and basically identifying every culvert we come across, and we'll measure those. We want to make sure these fish have freedom to migrate up and downstream as they want. So far we've surveyed 440. We probably have another couple hundred to go. We're finding dozens of undocumented barriers.
In Washington state as a whole, there are over 20,000 documented barriers and even more that are undocumented. On the Olympic Peninsula alone, we have over 4,000 documented culverts and barriers to fish migration, mini dams that are impeding the passage of our salmon and steelhead. We are trying to be strategic in the barriers that we're removing to ensure that we're prioritizing reestablishing connection to some of the coldest water refuges that we have still available.
This is Colby Creek, and it's a pretty large tributary to the Dickey River, and we've got 4 culverts down here that are blocking a couple miles of habitat upstream here. Rainier Inc., the landowner, has agreed to let us pull these 4 culverts out and leave this as an open channel, so this stream, Colby Creek, will be restored back to its most natural habitat it can be in. And all the trees that are getting removed that are hazard trees for the project will be placed in stream for more cover for the salmon and to produce a more complex habitat. This is a habitat for juvenile, adult, and all life stages of salmon here. These little guys, as soon as this culvert is out of here, they'll be able to access upstream as well, and they just have miles and miles of habitat opportunity up there. And more specifically, here they have a nice channel to be in, but upstream they have access to wetlands and more off-channel refugia for them to be able to survive to smolthood and be able to go out to the ocean. You know, we're making jobs both at the level for me as a sponsor of the project and helping landowners get funding, and then as having the contractors do it. And then after the contractors get out of there, we'll have kids come volunteer from the school and do plantings. Projects like these passage opening projects are immediate successes. We see salmon utilizing them as soon as they're coming back the next season, and oftentimes juveniles are utilizing them immediately after the barrier is removed. It's very, very low input for a very high output for salmon habitat.
The Cold Water Connection campaign is bringing together partners on the Olympic Peninsula to remove fish barriers, ultimately reconnecting 150 miles, allowing fish to get back home to some of the most important cold, clean water reaches. Watershed restoration is not only working to recover our wild salmon and steelhead populations, it's also helping to recover our coastal communities and our coastal economies. I really believe that the Olympic Peninsula is one of our last best hopes for salmon and steelhead in the Pacific Northwest, and we have an opportunity to get recovery right here, to restore these populations to something more resemblant of historic health. But we need to get to work.